Welcome to episode 230 of Reclaiming the Faith. Today, I interview my good friend, Nick Pelham. It's such a great story, and I know you're going to be blessed by it. So please consider sharing this with a friend. It's such an inspirational message of hope and how God works in our lives to bring about his amazing purpose. So yeah, please consider sharing it and leaving a rating and review wherever you're listening to this. And if you want links to any of my content, you can find that at philsbaker.com. All right, well, without any further delay, let's get into episode 230, my interview with Nick Pelham. All right, Nick Pelham, thanks so much for coming today, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Dude, I've been wanting to do this for a while, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, this is exciting.
All right, man. So, tell me what it was like for you as a child growing up in a Christian household with your great family, by the way.
Yes, yeah. No, my my parents did a good job, I feel like. They were very eager to get me in the church, and so we went to a small, I would say smaller church, you know. At the time, I felt like it was like in a strip center area, and I remember going there every week, and, you know, we were consistent there, and then we got a new building, and honestly, that's probably the point when I remember, but I was always involved, you know, I was in church, and I always remember seeing my parents, prep lessons for working with kids or whatnot, and then even when I was in, 6th grade or 7th grade, I would be helping them out with, you know, the 3rd graders and the 2nd graders, so they were always involved working with kids, and I was always with them in the, you know, just helping them out with the church stuff. But, I was always involved there. I felt like that was a regular routine in my life. And yeah.
Big time volunteer culture.
Yes.
At that church.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which was, that was great in one sense. You got a lot of people serving. That we got several mutual friends. One of them is David Light.
Yes.
Well, and his wife, Kelsey. Do you have any, an anecdote you could share with the people of how they played an integral role in helping you along your path?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think, David and Kelsey both, you know, since they were some of the first faces that I met whenever I got involved in the youth. So I don't think, if I'm remembering correctly, I don't believe 6th grade, I was like, I don't really want to go to youth. That's new, and I don't want to be involved in something new. So I was pushing it off aside, and I had a buddy named Colton, just walk me over there. And we were meeting in a garage, and it was maybe 20 kids. My numbers could be off, but meeting in a garage, doing worship there. And I remember it was consistently with David over and over again, and I think we started building a connection there. But the youth program there was always felt there was a level of I think this is the right word, an intimacy there. Is that everyone knew each other very well, and it felt just like one large family.
Yeah,
they did such a good job with that. I can't praise them enough for how much of a family it felt like. And I think in that moment, I wouldn't have been able to recognize it until much later in my story. But looking back on it, I see they did such an amazing job at that. That idea of the church is good, and there's family, and when it's firing on all cylinders, man, is it a beautiful place. So
yeah,
I'd say they definitely were the people that brought me, I would say, into the faith. You know, the question gets popped a lot of when did you become a Christian? And I think it's sometimes a little bit difficult whenever you've grown up in the church and grown up in the faith for so long. But there was, in youth, I think there was definitely moments, maybe early middle school, where I was like, this is the thing that I want to take seriously.
Yeah.
Partly because I felt like I had the good mentorship from parents and from David and the other youth pastor, Weave. I saw what they did, and I was like, man, these adults, they care, and I want to be around the people that care, and I want to follow Christ, because that's what they're doing. And at that point, it was very much a decision to say, like, I really want this to be my faith. And that sort of started, I think, the journey early in middle school, for sure.
When did you get baptized?
It was probably in elementary school. I know I got baptized, but it was elementary school with the church. Sort of you go through that process of like, I want to get baptized. That's the next step. And then, I think you sort of have those iterations of like, maybe this is the thing I want to start taking a little bit more seriously. And
Cool. So at what point did you have that health scare?
Yeah. So it would have been the beginning of ninth grade. So I had just switched schools. I had been in the same school for 9 years. And then ninth grade hits, and I'm probably like, it's October. I had about 2 to 3 weeks of just the worst nausea imaginable. I mean, if it went in, it came out, and not the way that you wanted it to come out.
Sure.
And I was already a thin kid. I mean, I was probably 5'5", 5'6", and not like 115, 120. And I couldn't eat anything. And it was very apparent to my classmates. I mean, I was getting told by everyone, it's like, you look so pale, so pale. And I was like, I'm barely hanging on. And that was my answer to them most of the time, because I would look at them and I'd be like, I just need to make it through the day.
Yeah.
I'm so desperate to go to sleep. And eventually, I was just not able to go to class. And my parents were very like, dude, you got to go to class, pick it up, whatever. And we went to doctors over and over again. And they were like, maybe it's mono, maybe it's something else. There was no answer. The nausea pills, nothing was working. And towards right at the beginning of November, I had a moment where I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I can't even drink water. Like, if I drink water, it's coming back out. And I'm just going to go take a nap, Mom. I can't be doing school. It's 7 p.m. My brother and dad are at my brother's soccer game, and my mom and I were there. And I think my mom just sort of had the motherly instinct of saying, something's not right. We're going to the ER. Yeah. So I get rushed to the ER, and not rushed. I mean, like, my mom driving to the ER. Yeah. And they sit me down, and they initially said it was like, this is dehydration, clearly, because he hasn't had enough water. But the doctor there at the time happened to be there. It was, if I'm remembering correctly, just was not supposed to be there. And the specific ER doctor also was like a heart specialist. And they looked and they say, I remember them asking me, like, how do you feel right now? And I'm like, I'm just tired. I want to sleep. That's my response. And he's like, well, dude, your heart rate's like 150, 160. Oh, wow. That's not good. And I was like, I just want sleep, So they hooked me up to a bunch of IVs. And I'm laying there on the bed, and I remember asking the doctor, I said, Doc, can I just go to sleep? Is that okay? I'm just tired. And they go, yeah. So I just start falling asleep. Little did I know that was me about to flatline. So I flatlined in that moment. My parents and my brother were all there, and they had to witness me flatline. And so I got rushed to Texas Children's Hospital down in downtown Houston, and I flatlined again there. The result was, the technical term is tachycardia-induced myopathy. So pretty much I had a cardiac attack, some heart disease.
This is about 10 years ago, right?
We're pretty much a little over 10 years ago right now. Yeah. I was 14 at the time. So it was obviously a very scary incident. And really, I look back on it and say all I wanted was sleep. And I didn't feel too much pain outside of the nausea. And I was out for a couple of days, cold out. Docs were freaking out. Docs were panicking. My parents are trying to hold it together. And I can't even imagine what my brother was thinking through at the time, because he wasn't allowed to go into the ICU. So watching his, younger brother just flatline, or his older brother flatline. And at this point, I remember waking up and I remember having an obnoxious amount of IVs in me. I had this, they called it an Impella, this big old machine right on the top, right in my chest. And it pretty much functioned in a way that it was like a motor. It was running my heart because that was the only thing that would keep me alive. Now, for reference, this Impella device is not meant to be used on children, and definitely not like really meant to be used for children for over 24 hours. But they really had no other option to keep me alive because medicines, even some of the medicines they were giving me, like those weren't working. I was put on a heart transplant list. It went from 100 to 0 really quickly. My dad tells a story of whenever I got in, it was so many doctors and so many fellows and all the high up doctors. And he went and leaned over to the guy that brought me the ambulance guy. And he was like, what are all these interns and all them doing? And he goes, no. These are all high up doctors, which is a surreal feeling whenever, all those doctors are on one side of the room debating, what do you do about this kid here? Over the next couple of days, I'd still be in there. I'd be slowly recovering. Things just slowly started getting better over time. It was a long journey of recovery. I was in the hospital for a month. Slowly had the device taken out of me. The sort of conclusion is that they don't really know what caused it. I had a small heart murmur, and they say you had the heart murmur that somehow interacted with myocarditis, heart disease. Somehow that resulted in this, which was cardiac failure and pretty much so many of my organs failing, which is the reason why I was nauseous, because nothing could be processed. I lost 10 to 15% of my body weight. And I was already, like I said, a very small kid. Yeah. I really distinctly remember laying in my bed with all the IVs on me. All I could really do was ask the question of God, I think it'd be better off if I was dead. I don't want to go through this recovery process at all. I don't know what this is. This sucks so much.
Yeah.
And when you have that many IVs in you, you can't lay on your side. You can't. You're stuck staring at the ceiling, and all you can do is just sit there and go, honestly, God, what on earth? What's going on?
Right.
And that was, I would say, maybe 6-ish months after I had felt like I recommitted to God. So it was man, God, I just, committed to you, and now I'm on, I feel like my deathbed. Yeah. I should be dead, and I'm not. And are you just keeping me here to just torture me? What's going on here? A ninth grader I did not know how to process this or think through this or what to do about this. Luckily, I had a very good nursing staff and doctors, and my parents were very supportive throughout this entire process. A month later, I would come out of the hospital with no pacemaker, no heart transplant, none of that. And I had some surgeries, so I have a scar right on the top of my chest. Still, at this point, 6 months later, I'd have an ablation, which would, fix some of the other residual things with the heart. And I was still on medications, a lot of heart medications, it was starting to be a recovery process. I lost a lot of feeling in my arm because of some of the surgeries they had to do and sort of sever some of the areas around there. So there was a lot of PT that was going on, a lot of medication. As my doctor's note ended up saying, is this 14-year-old is living a life that's more akin to a 70-year-old than a teen. And it felt true. And it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
But after, I will say, looking back on it, it was a testimony for me to be able to see, man, God worked in this. But I still firmly hold that I think it was more so a testimony for my parents that they had to walk through that, and they got to really see the effects of, I think, how God really touched them in the healing process, because I was just there and medicated like crazy. So I was a little bit out of it.
Yeah.
That being said, we got a cool note that came about afterwards one of the leading doctors. She is currently the head of pediatric electrophysiology for Johns Hopkins, so big hospital.
Yeah.
She was in the OR with me. She was doing that, and she came up to my dad and I after our first like revisit, and she goes, "I was in the room with Nicholas, and I'm good. I'm really good." She's a believer. She goes, "I'm good. I'm really good, and we're all very good here." She is just a very good hospital. I've seen his heart. His heart was not working. We did not save him. We could not. It was not working. It was something else. It was something else. I'm good, but that was something else. And that's sort of a story that I've had to cling on to, especially in like my low times of asking where God is going like, I should not be alive. I mean, I'm hearing one of the top doctors out there, a doctor from Johns Hopkins sort of attesting to that. Man, that's something special right there.
Yeah.
And maybe I don't understand it, but it did come away from this time of being like, it gave me a whole new perspective on life. For a 14-year-old, I came in there, as a 14-year-old is, you don't really have that like idea of how quantifiable life is and how like long you really have. And then a 14-year-old is met with death in front of your face, and you go like, oh, there's this experience of life. Like I have to take it seriously, and I only get one chance at this,
Yeah.
I'm going to take it seriously because that's the only option I have. I've seen it up close, and I don't know how long I have. Okay. And that's sort of the conclusion that came away from that. Yeah. Hopefully the story was, clear there. And
Absolutely. Do you know how long you were flatlined?
I don't know how long I was flatlined. I don't feel like I could give a answer I'd be fine with.
And there's no memory that you have while you were flatlined?
No, I remember like waking up a little bit dazy and hazy and seeing like hallucinating shapes, but that was it. So nothing too serious. I just remember flatlining and I think being brought up an elevator and then I think flatlining again. So that's really it.
So were they like, did they put you on a defibrillator? I don't know how to say that, but like, you just don't know.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
So those ER, those what are they called? The ambulances. Those things work magic. That's all I know. I was brought in by, I think it's called the kangaroo cart.
Okay.
Which are equipped, if possible, to do like open heart surgeries on those. So it was oh crap, he's flatlined because of his heart.
Yeah.
Get him downtown ASAP.
Wow. So 14 years old, and you just come extremely close, like as close as you can get to death, without dying, right? And I've never flatlined. I've come pretty close to death a few times, particularly as a kid. And, for me, it gave me this like haunting sense, like thinking, well, am I going to die really soon? And I don't know, a bit of like trying to predict when that's going to happen again, But I feel like God has used that in my life to really help me be, like you're talking about, more serious about what time I have now. But man, for those next like several years for me, like that's when I got pretty deep into drug addiction and all kinds of stuff, just not really knowing how to process all that stuff. So like maybe what were the next couple of years like for you in high school, wrestling with the reality of what just happened?
I think I did what I typically do, and I just sort of dove myself into my school, and that was sort of my way of probably coping with a lot of things.
Yeah.
But honestly, the question that I'll say I pushed down a lot of questions, and it was that why question still always lingered in my head of like, God, why would you let this happen to me? Why would you? It sort of felt like it took away a little bit of my youth from me, which is probably a little bit mental, but it did really feel like I felt like, God, why did you take that away from me? So there's a lot of, I think, a lot of things just got tense. And I felt a lot of tension, I think, with my relationship with God that I did not care to acknowledge, nor did I ever want to bring up. to be honest with you. So that's probably the best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't come up until later in life, I guess. So,
yeah. So, let's see, you graduate, or when did you start taking God seriously again? I guess after that.
Yeah, no. I think it was definitely a gradual process.
Yeah.
And I would say it started whenever the church that I had grown up in really, I felt like I had lost that home. The church we were at, broke apart. Long story short there, right? And I was left with a lot of tension because this home that I had grown up in, I mean, it was a second home for me, for sure. I was very involved with the youth, and seeing a youth that had grown from a garage to 50, 60, 70 kids, maybe more.
Yeah.
And feeling like one large family, to just sort of suddenly almost feeling like over 2 months go from a room of 70 people to a room where it was me, my brother, and one other girl. Was like, what just happened? And so I looked at this home and went like, what did you do? And I saw people that I looked up to in their lives, and I went, they are hurting. These people I looked up to were hurting, and I trusted you, and now I'm just confused. But in this process was David Light. I saw him still care about me in a way that it didn't make sense. It was like, I know you're hurting. I know this is frustrating and hard for you. For some reason, you still want to be around me. Yeah. And at that point, it sort of separated this, like, what is church? That question started really being asked. But then I also saw, like, this guy gets it. He loves God, and he loves the people that are in front of him. What's going on? And I wasn't really able to, like, qualify that or give a good understanding of what that looked like. So honestly, I went to college, Laterno, and I came out of that sort of church experience just sort of frustrated. And so I went into Laterno with
a lot. Christian college.
A Christian college, yeah.
Yeah. East Texas.
Right in the heart of East Texas, Longview, Texas. Yeah. And right in the pure Bible Belt, as Bible Belt gets.
Yeah.
And I would walk into every church, and my first thought was like, something's going to blow up, something's wrong. And it was just this heart that was filled with so much anger and frustration. And honestly, the worst part is that I brought people with me in this process. Is that I would keep going to churches. And like a semester of 16 weeks, I went to like 14 different churches. And it was purely to walk in there and just say like, disgusting. And just to look at them with so much disgust. And that was really just coming from a place of, I was hurt. And I didn't understand. I didn't get it. So once again, this sort of question of why kept coming out. And I pushed it down as long as I possibly could. Then I got later into college, or at the end of my first semester of college, I was rooming with one of my best friends. And he was asking a lot of questions throughout that semester, asking like, this stereotypical, why does God allow evil? What's going on? I don't get how God loves, those type of questions. And we had grown up in sort of the same environment.
Yeah.
And I had no idea how to answer these questions. I probably gave pretty bad answers, to be honest, looking back on it. But later in the semester, things just got really heavy for him, and the college transition just was a lot. And I knew things were not going well. And to the point where I told a friend of mine, I was like, I'm scared to walk into my room just because I'm afraid of what I'm going to see from him. And little did I know that the night after that, I'd wake up And I'd walk into the restroom and I'd see him just lying there, like pale as a ghost. I mean, I can't describe. He was so pale, just begging to like help. I tried overdosing, and I remember we got the situation addressed, and we got him to the hospital, and he's still alive. But that messed me up, and it felt like then from like a 4-year stretch from the health stuff to church blowing up to seeing one of your closest friends, try to kill himself. At this point, I tried pushing it down, but there was no more room to push things down with. And so when I got back from that semester, that break, I was like, I'm going to take it slow. And that meant I had a lot of time to think, and it all came springing up, trying to push the balloon underwater, and I pushed it long enough and it popped up. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of anxiety and any emotion under the sun possible. To the point where I was like, I told my mom right before I left, it's like, I don't want to go back to college. Like it was so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But it started to be the point where I said, okay, I have to start addressing some of the questions that I have, because this is the only way that we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
And I remember the part, I think one of the key moments that I think started the process of turning things around. We had like this meeting with one of the theology profs at the school. And he says, let's read Psalms 88, which Psalms 88 is famous for it being like the most negative psalm there is. It is a very depressing psalm.
Yeah.
And I came away from them going like, wait a second, I can be honest with God here. I don't need to just push it down.
Yeah.
And it's not that like David never taught me that or the church never taught me that. I think it's the right message at the right time.
Yeah.
And it hit me right at that. And I was like, okay, I can start to be honest with God.
Yeah.
And I can start to be honest with some of the people that were very close in my life. And so it started that process of, okay, I'm going to be honest with you, God. There's going to be a lot of hard prayers. And there was a lot of hard prayers. And there was a slow journey. There's, a lot of therapy and a lot of meeting with people and a lot of just getting things out. But it started that process of saying, okay, I want to trust God. I want to be back in that place where it was good when at the church I was at. Like that to me, and in college, like that was peak. It was great. Like that was family. I felt loved there no matter what.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I was seeking, that sort of like that love in that sense. Mm-hmm. And so I had this process, I think probably started right around then. And it was a slow journey. I had to take a couple theology classes through college. And one of them I had to take was called Encountering New Communities 2. There wasn't a 1, there was only a 2. And the whole point of this was to sort of teach that service towards your community, like that's what it means. Like that's like an integral part of what it means to be a Christian is, doing justice, right?
Yeah.
And they pulled out passages like, the Hosea 6:6, right? And Amos 5 and Amos 6, Isaiah 58 passages. And I saw that and I went, okay, I think I need to start serving. So I'm still in this process of wrestling through like, does God love me? Or is God just like here to torment me? Like what's going on?
Yeah.
How am I supposed to deal with any of these questions? But what I am going to do is I'm going to say, I want to keep being honest with you, and I'm going to keep leaning into you, and I want to keep trying to serve you in the best way that I can. And it's going to be in these small little ways. So that class really okay, God, where can I serve the community? Like what does this look like? I remember I prayed that for 2 days. And then a day later I was working in, it's sort of like a coffee music thing at our school that we do. And I was doing the audio for that, and a buddy came up to me and he goes, "Hey, we need an audio guy for our church. Do you want to come help us?" And I was like, I'm not going to over spiritualize this, but I'll take this as an opportunity and say, like, I've been praying. Where do you want me, God?
Yeah.
So me and the buddy started helping out with the youth ministry and their worship for about 6 months there. And that really brought me back into church and saying, not that I wasn't attending church, but it brought me back into a point of like, okay, I can be involved in a church again, sort of softened my heart to that. It wasn't like an ideal situation, but it was, okay, I want to be involved again in the church.
Yeah.
So my last semester of college comes around, and I wasn't helping with the youth anymore. And so I went to a new church, and it was sort of just where my younger brother was going, because we went to the same college. And I remember going there, and it wasn't anything special. I was sort of going there. I had one semester. I was ready to graduate. I was so done.
Yeah.
And I remember hitting a point of sitting in these old Baptist pews, and I was sitting by myself, and I went, I'm ready to find my place again. I'm sick and tired of running away. I'm ready to find a home.
Yeah.
I think my heart at that point had sort of been tired of punching at God and punching at something, that eventually I was just weary and tired. And ready to commit to something. And, there's a quote from a movie that I really like, When the Wind Shakes the Barley. And they say the quote is, like, it's one thing to be against something, it's another thing to be for something. And I was against something for a long time. And I was ready at that point to say, I'm ready to be for something. I'm ready to be, I'm ready to contribute to these areas that are maybe bothering me, and ready to say, like, I'm ready to tackle these head on, and I'm ready to help others tackle them on. At least that's what I felt out, and who knows how God's understanding of it all was. But throughout this process, I was still having a lot of questions. I was dealing with some health issues all throughout college, and so there was still the question of, like, why in my head, and that was always there. It's always been bothering me. Like, why, God, are you letting this happen? This chief question of, why does God allow hurt? Why does God allow evil? It was always sort of ruminating in the back of my head. But while it was still there, I was ready to go to the next thing. So I graduated college, and I had a job, right after that. It was in the Houston area, sort of like a remote job, pseudo-remote job. And at that point, I just went to the church that my parents had been going. And that's when I was very quick to say, like, I want to get involved in youth ministry, because that's the place that poured into me. It's where I saw David Light.
A lot of great people at that church.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
this is obviously a different church.
Yes.
When you grew up in. Yeah.
Thanks for the clarification. I went to a new church, yes. And I was very quick. Our family loosely knew the youth pastor, and we had known people that were interned there. So I was like, can you get me connected with him? I'd love to get involved. And that was just sort of was on my heart. Prior to leaving college, I wanted to get into youth ministry. That was sort of the goal. I had always seen the college kids come back for D Now, and I was like, that's what I want to do whenever I'm in college. I want to be able to do that. And so youth has always been something that's, I guess, been on my heart. And I was like, I guess that's the natural step. I'm excited. I want to get plugged in to doing that. So I got involved with youth there, and I remember meeting with the youth pastor. His name was Matt, and a great guy. Loved him. And I sat down and said, I want to do high school ministry. And he goes, we need you for middle school ministry.
Yeah.
And I went, okay.
Very few people that are like, I want to do middle school.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was so reluctant.
Yeah.
But in that process, I came to youth ministry, and I was with middle schoolers. And I'll say this: I got so lucky with the middle schoolers that I had. There's a couple of boys that they were accepting of any human that walked through that door, as long as they can make a couple jokes and a couple quips at you. You were fine. You were in.
Yeah.
And I got along with them great. And slowly through this process, I got to start teaching in this process. But I think one of the best parts about it was the way that it was restorative to my faith. David Light and I got dinner one night, and I was telling him, just catching up on life. And somehow the conversation went to youth. And he made the comment along the lines of like, they're not your young adults, but they're still going to love you in a certain way. And it never clicked to me until I went back into the youth, and it was like, we were 6 months in, I went on like a 2-week vacation, and I came back, and one of the kids goes, "Nicholas, where have you been?"
Yeah.
And I went, oh, like these kids really do care. And there's a bunch of other smaller stories, through the time I was there. But I saw the way that they cared, and it healed a part of my heart that was like, this was a place that, like, youth ministry is a place that I loved.
Yeah.
And I could see the way that kids love. And I didn't have to do anything to like earn their love. I just had to show up, and like they just brought you in. And for once, I didn't feel like I had to like white knuckle my way towards an answer or white knuckle my way towards love.
Yeah.
It was these kids just saw you and like, I think you're cool, or I think you're decent.
Yeah.
And they sort of just they just took me in and brought me in. And it helps me to understand, I think, a little bit of God's love and through the kids, and see like they just accepted and they just sort of embraced me.
Yeah.
And somehow that was that could be translated to God. And I saw like God does love me, and God just wants to embrace me.
Yeah.
And through seeing the way other students loved each other, and through seeing the love they had, like they showed me, I said, I think I understand God's love just a teensy bit better.
Yeah.
And that was such a massive blessing, sort of, at the start of youth ministry. Is it really started, I think, God showing me like, Nicholas, I do care about you. I do love you. And I was still wrestling with those questions, but it helped just a little bit.
Sure. And you continued serving there for quite a while.
Right.
Yeah. How have you seen God's call on your life become a little bit more clarified through those years serving?
Yeah, no. I served there for about 2.5 years. And it was a journey and a half, to say the least. And it's something I wouldn't trade the world for. I would not trade the world for at all. I started teaching there. Some pastors, they looked at me and they took a chance. And for that, I'm like eternally grateful for. I cannot tell them thank you enough. They let me teach. And the moment that I knew that I was like, I think teaching is something that I want, a world that I want to be around, was I was helping in the summer. We did 6th through 8th grade, going through the Sermon on the Mount. And we rotated teachers quite a bit at the ministry. And I taught maybe one lesson on like the Beatitudes, and then later taught a lesson on the oaths in the oath language. Mm-hmm. And I was the last lesson right at the end of the summer. And it was, the recap, the foundation, this is the foundation, the recap. And I remember sitting there with all the 6th and 8th graders, probably 30 at the time. And I asked them, I said, okay, what have we talked about the last couple of months? Someone go, anger, oaths, don't commit adultery, all those things. And we write them on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I look at them and I go, okay, why don't we show anger? Like, why is that not good? And they give me this blank stare, as some of the middle schoolers do. And one of them goes, well, because God said so. And I went, okay. And they look at me with even more of a dead face.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we look at like anger and we see like these are the consequences. Like there's something not good about this.
Yeah.
And so Jesus' effects aren't just to like shake your finger at us and be like, don't do this. It was like, no, there is practical consequences to some of these things. And you don't want to be in a world that's like everyone's just angry at each other. Like no one wants to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And the kids understood that, and we went through a couple like iterations of that to the point where they were starting to pick it up, and they were starting to not just say, "Well, because God said so," but they started thinking through, why is this not good? And it was a light bulb moment that clicked. And if you've ever been a teacher or have ever taught something you care about, when a student that you have clicks, oh my goodness, there's no greater feeling than that, and you just want to keep having those moments with students. And that was sort of the moment, a very clear moment for me that I was like, I love doing this. And it was also a part of, like, it was a healing part of my journey as well. There's I don't know if he actually said it, but in the movie, like Chariots of Fire with Eric Liddell, right? I'm going to misquote it a little bit. The idea is when I run, I feel like the face of God, or I feel the presence of God type of energy.
Yeah, God's smiling.
God's smiling upon me. Yeah, that's what it was. When I taught, I felt that. And it was like for 45 minutes, whenever I was teaching, I felt that smile. I felt that joy. I felt a passion. And looking back on it, it was such a healing process. I mean, it was a healing process in the moment. Yeah. Because I saw that and said, I'm actually getting to be for something and not just angry at something. And being for something took over a lot of spots of bitterness and frustration. It was a very healing process, being with those students and getting to walk with them. So I followed them. I ended up following them in their grades. So I started with 6th grade and went up.
Yeah.
Towards the end of their 7th grade year, the church had a big split at this point, and I had to make the decision to say, do I leave or do I stay? Like, what's the process? What do I do? I'm going to be working with 8th grade, and for what we did for 8th grade is we did a timeline of the Bible, and it was really just the fall semester was all Old Testament, and then the spring was going through Mark, and then you sort of do like a topical Pauline letter type of thing.
Okay.
And I had to make a decision of saying, okay, do I want to stay with these kids or do I want to leave the church? Because we lost both youth pastors, we lost the pastor, and at this point because of that, the momentum with the youth ministry obviously was lost. And so I was looking at the youth ministry going like, is this the place that I want to be at? Is this the church I want to commit to? And I remembered what David had done to me and said like, no, I still care about you. And I looked at those kids and said, no, I still care about those kids so much. And I want to pay forward the love that had been given to me. Yeah. And those kids, they were worth it to me. I saw the joy in their heart, and I just loved being with them. So I ended up teaching pretty much at that point about all the boys that I had grown close with had left, which was really difficult and really challenging having to see that. But there were some of the girls there in that class that I had taught as well. So we ended up teaching them, going through the timeline. And that process was the same thing as getting the creative freedom to sort of work in the timeline and be able to show them. Going through, never forget, going through the story of Joseph and Jesus. I taught both those lessons, and we did both on Joseph. And then at the end of Joseph, I sort of rewrote, I made a paragraph or two talking about the life of Joseph, but made it vague to the point where it sounded like it could be Jesus as well. And my whole thesis for the argument—
That's awesome, man. Typology.
My whole thesis for the entire Old Testament part was, I think it's the end of Luke. And he said, when the prophets, the law, the prophets,
Yeah, Luke 24.
they were all pointing to me. And I said, they are, and I'm going to show you this.
Yeah.
And so we went through Joseph, and I read them this all, and it's all describing Joseph's story. And I said, who's this talking about? And they look, and they sort of give me this like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because I had never mentioned Jesus once in this Joseph story yet. It was all to build up to this point.
Yeah.
And someone goes, Joseph. And another girl goes, no, it's Jesus. And I went, yes, you're right.
Yeah.
And their minds were blown.
Yeah.
And as long as I was there, they would talk about that. And that was something that was really like meaningful to them. And that's all God. It's not me. I'm just trying to do what's faithful to the text.
Yeah.
And, but like I said, like when you have moments like that teaching, it makes 3 years worth it. I could have that one moment and it would make 3 years of grinding through something.
It's going to change the way they read the Bible forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And those moments are amazing. They're just absolutely amazing. I loved having those and getting to wrestle through a lot of questions with them. And they were deep thinkers. They were really deep thinkers.
Yeah.
I went like, this is what I want to do. I love doing this with students, even if the situation's very, very challenging.
Yeah.
And I was able to see in that church split how I had grown a little bit. It was frustrating, but I wasn't,
frustrating, but not faith shaking.
Yes, and I wasn't like shaking my fist at God. It was frustrating. I could be honest about it, but it was like, all right, I trust that there's something good going on here.
Yeah.
Something will good happen from it. And that God, you are in this process, and I can leave it somewhere at that.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think it did start raising questions. This is when I had started teaching. There's the saying that when you teach, two people learn. You know, the person that's hearing and the person that's teaching, and that I was teaching at a very frequent rate that I was having to like push myself quite a bit. And the questions that these students were asking, I don't feel like we're very stereotypical 8th grade.
Yeah.
When we're talking inerrancy of the Bible for 8th graders and having to go through that type of stuff. And it's like, I was not expecting an 8th grader to ask that question, but they did.
Yeah.
That really forced me to have to start asking questions. But yeah, that definitely sent me then down the route, I think I want to go to seminary because I want to continue, I want to be in this world of teaching.
Yeah.
Whatever that looked like. Sent me down there, and we could go down that route if you want to talk about that, or we could talk about sort of like my questions of like, what is church? Because then on both of those sort of things.
They're going to coincide though a bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
So let's do seminary and kind of, you can weave some of that stuff in there.
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
All right. So you decided to go to get which degree at Houston Christian University?
I started as an MDiv, but I went back to Master's of Arts and Theological Studies. So MATS is the shortened term for it. Yeah.
All right. So like, what were some of your expectations going in, what you thought you're going to get out of it, what it was going to be like, and then like, what are some ways that those expectations were not in line with your experience and like how it has helped you grow? And some people call seminary cemetery, you know, and just like a pejorative type of thing, you know, but it can be an incredible experience.
Yeah. I don't know. The expectations I had going into beforehand, I don't know if I'd even be able to describe, I guess. My view going into seminary is I just want to teach. And this gets me the the credentials to teach, which may not have been the best motivation, but that was my motivation coming into it.
It's practical.
So it was, I'm an engineer, so that was obviously front of my mind there.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I guess I'll get these 2 years done with, and then I can go find a spot that I really want to teach and have the credentials to do so. And I sort of honestly viewed it as a roadblock in my way, which, again, not the greatest thing. But the Lord has definitely touched my heart in a couple places there. I thought going into it that I would love the like high academia and whatnot. And so anytime there was a class that I looked at and I was like, I don't want to do this class, I think God has smacked me in the face and been like, no, this is the class that actually is going to help you.
Yeah.
I know I just said what I said about academia, but systematic theology I had no desire to take, and that ended up being one of my favorite classes.
Yeah.
And they teach it very broad there. They obviously have their bias, but it was not like this is the right way. It was very like these are different systematic ideas and thoughts on this process. So they had taught, I loved that. I got put in a world religions class that really that rocked my world quite a bit. And we can get into that, but that was just very surreal. I didn't want to take that class. I shouldn't have been in that class. It messed up my whole schedule, and I had a mental plan of what I wanted. And I think God was like, no, you're taking this world religions class. And it slapped me in the face, and it was so good.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest impact, though, had been a spiritual formations class. I had a professor there named Laura Doremus, and we were talking about rest. And this was something that I had no desire to engage in. I had no desire to talk about at all, because I had advocated pretty heavily in saying, like, no, Christians, we should go. We should stop the sort of laziness.
Yeah.
Maybe had a little bit too much of an axe to grind in that world. But at that point, I had left my church. I had left a couple other ministries that I was involved in. And I just recognized, like, I was burnt out. And so I remember hearing this message from, I think his name is A.J. Swuba. He was a pastor. Gave a preaching to a church. There we go. And it was all about the Sabbath.
Yeah.
And the preaching just struck me right in the heart. And he just beat down this idea that, no, the Sabbath is good and resting is good. That's a lot longer conversation, which I'd love to get into if we have time. But I came away from that message, and I went to my professor's office hours, and I looked at her and I said, I see passages like Matthew 25 that are so heavy. It's the end of Matthew 25. It's so heavy in saying that equate doing some of the works of the faith is loving Christ. And I see that, and that's like, it means I should go, right?
Yeah.
But then I hear a message about Sabbath, and it says rest and stop and be still. And I'm sitting there going, is this an either or decision? What the heck's going on here? Like this is so frustrating because I don't know what to do, and I don't want to be the resting guy. Yeah. And she looks at me, she gets the smile on her face, and she goes, yeah, you're right. There's a tension there, but you're asking an either or question. It's not an either or question, Nicholas. It's a discernment question.
Yeah.
And I went, oh. And once again, it was a message that I probably had heard from a ton of people, but it was so much had come up in that point in my life. And it was the right message at the right time.
Yeah.
And it rocked my world of hearing that. I'm still like processing, like, what does that discernment process look like? How do we wrestle through it? But in that whole journey was, it's been an explorative journey since then, saying what is Sabbath in the modern context of the church?
Yeah.
What is rest? And what does that look like? Yeah, what does that look like for the church? And honestly, I think if I'm coming out of when I come out of seminary, God willing, right? And I look back, I think that conversation will be worth the money spent on the degree by itself. Yeah. There was a bunch of other conversations and moments that happened, but that moment right there felt like God reaching his hand for me and saying, like, I got you. Through the wisdom of somebody that much older and had gone through it and had asked the same questions, and done it so gracefully and lovingly. So yeah, that's probably been the biggest. I mean, I could talk about like all the hermeneutics classes and all those and teachings and all that, but the spiritual formations of that conversation alone made it so worth it.
Yeah. Man, you've brought up the issue of why, right? Going back to the, ninth grade issue. And I don't know how to say this, so I'm just going to try. But I wonder if and let me preface this by saying, like, you're not going to know all the whys until, right? Until you're before him, and probably until a lot of people are before him. Because, the why is never just about you, right?
Right.
It's about so many people, and probably some people that you don't know, and you will never know, until then, until you stand before him. But I think perhaps one of the whys has to do with this idea of Sabbath. Because what could you do for God while you were on the hospital bed?
I couldn't do anything but stare at a ceiling. Yeah.
And yet, what was God doing through you while you were even, flatlined?
Yeah.
God was doing things through you and through your story to impact other people when you couldn't do a single thing.
Right.
I think there's a lot in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're just being still and letting him be God. You didn't really have an option in that.
Yeah, right.
But even still.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Abraham Heschel, he's a modern Jewish scholar. I think he sort of came right after like the World War II era.
Yeah.
He writes this beautiful, beautiful book called Sabbath. Oh, I love it. And he talks about how the Jewish people would view the Sabbath as if all work had been done.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very beautiful way of describing the Sabbath is, well, if you're anybody really, there's always something to do. And so the question isn't, how do I get all this done beforehand? It's saying, how can I view moments in life, or maybe a day in life, as if all the work has been done? Because God is good and is faithful and he's in control. There's the passage in John where Jesus says, like, my Father is at work, is continuously at work. And I think we need to hold on to that idea and say, no, he's at work. And being in a hospital bed will show you that I can't do anything. I have to let him be in control. And that's humbling.
Yeah. And as you're coming to the end of seminary, with the expressed intention of being able to teach, there can be some tension here too.
Yeah.
Because, like, what's next?
Yeah.
God, are you going to come through? When are you going to come through? How are you going to come through? But you got to come through.
Right.
And it's this, it's going to be interesting to see how he does those things, how he answers those prayers, how he teaches you through this, of what's coming next, But I'm excited to see what he's going to do. I think he's got a whole lot of cool things in store for you that you would never have imagined at 14.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see where God takes me,
And it may be kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
It may be different, but, looking back, it'll be good. Well, we're almost at an hour.
Okay.
So what's a way, one or two ways that people could be praying for you?
Yeah. So one is probably pretty general. This has been the prayer that's been on my mind is help me, God, help me to taste and see that you are good. Remind me of that reality. I think that's been one of the big prayers in my life. Help me taste and see that God is good.
Yeah.
And then probably another prayer after that is, I think really just is finding my place right now. Been in a big transition period of life, so really finding my footing and my grounding and my people.
Yeah.
And getting involved in wherever that is, getting involved in a healthy way. So I think those would be two things that I'd much appreciate prayer for. So yeah.
All right. Well, always let my guests give a last word. So if there are any kind of things that you were thinking about, you wanted to talk about, maybe about church or whatever, any kind of exhortations, feel free, take as much time as you need.
Yeah.
Okay. So something you want to leave the folks with.
See, I can sort of mesh two ideas together in a concise manner. It's been on my heart, the Sabbath idea. The ecclesiology questions are very fascinating to me, and the Sabbath question as well. And I think the Sabbath question has almost answered a lot of ecclesiology questions for me, and church questions for me. And I want to quote it right. Abraham Heschel says this beautiful quote that I just it's been ringing in my head continuously. He says, "Sad is the lot of him who arrives inexperienced and when led to heaven has no power to perceive the beauty of the Sabbath." And I think it's the church's job and mission to make sure that no one arrives to heaven inexperienced. And I think it's done through a way of hearing the words of God, absolutely preaching and those teachings and through worship. And that's a beautiful thing, 1,000%. But it's also taking a breath and stop and smell the roses around you.
Yeah.
And recognizing there's small things that are really good and God has given you. But also, I think it's someone of the church's job too to say there's things that are good here on earth and we can enjoy that community and have fun and enjoy the play that God has given us in this world.
Yeah.
But then also, the Sabbath is making sure that other people have the opportunity to experience the Sabbath. So those that are hurting and those that feel like they can't even provide a dinner for their family or whatever, I think it's the church's obligation to make sure that family can feel fed and feel like they have the opportunity to rest in the other three ways that I described. And I say that all to say to the person that is hurting and that is maybe frustrated at God and maybe asking those questions why. I think part of the Sabbath that God gives us is the opportunity to just cry out. And wherever on the spectrum you may feel towards God, that is an open option to do. If you are frustrated and angry, let it out. If you're brokenhearted, let it out.
Yeah.
If you're joyful, make a joyful noise. But whatever it is, the Father can take it.
Sincerity, man.
It is one of the best gifts the Lord has ever given me, and it's been the way that He's restored me. And I pray that the people around me that don't feel like they can be sincere to the Lord can taste and see that they can be sincere to the Lord and that He is faithful to hear and to listen. And I think eventually respond.
That's cool. Is there anything with church that you wanted to add to that?
I feel like that probably did a decent job there. That Sabbath idea is really holding down those ideas. I guess honestly, if anything I can think of, it'd probably be find your place, and for those that have the opportunity to place people and know where they can volunteer, know where they can help in the church community, I would say look for the gifts in other people and help them find a little bit of purpose through their giftings. I believe in that. Someone took a risk on me, and sometimes it's going to take taking a risk on somebody to help them find a little bit of purpose so that whenever they do whatever it may be, that they can say, when I do this, I feel that God is smiling upon me, because that is a gift. And I think it's a gift that church can give to people. And for those that are looking to find something in the church, take a risk. Don't burn yourself out. Don't try to, white knuckle your way to whatever. But try taking risks and finding places that you can be involved and to help others find that Sabbath, to help others experience the beauty of rest that the Lord has given us. And I think when people are looking for people that want to do that and people are willing to take risks, I think the church can work in a very, very beautiful way.
A new moon in the forest, faintest of light. Is that more than enough for my need? As I stumble in darkness, try as I might, again I'm falling down on my knees. But a change in perspective can change everything. Maybe down in the dirt's not so bad. If it's where I can meet you, it's worth anything. For eternity's view is what lasts. This distressing confusion is good for my soul, 'cause my heart's full of slander and lies. For you know what you're doing to get me back home. I belong with my Father of lights. You won't be my maker. Would you change my name to a kingdom forever at peace? 'Cause a limp in my gait is a trade I would take for your patience to pour out of me. I don't wanna be governed by fear anymore. May your righteousness rule in my heart. May your gentleness guide me and love lead me on.